afternoon. My name is Beth Lazar, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Real Estate Expert. And thank you for the shout out. And my partner in crime next to me is Joe Flanagan from the Agent Success team here at Side. And he and I are extremely happy to have you here with us today, so thank you for joining us. We know it's the end of the day and that cocktails and dinner wait us, and we would, if we knew we were going to have this great intimate crowd, we would have asked them just to drop it off here so we could start the night early. So we appreciate you joining us for this last and what Joe and I hope will be the very best breakout session of the day. We're calling it, thank you, the ultimate guide to onboarding. That said, we know there is actually not only one guide to onboarding because everybody is on their own growth path, and that actually the onboarding process is different for each of us. So before we even start, we kind of wanted to get a feel for who's in the room with us today. So how many of you have already onboarded between 1 and 5 team members? Raise your hand. So quite a few people. How about 5 to 10? Okay, and anybody 10 or more? Okay, so great. That's amazing. So I think you'll find that no matter where you are in your growth plan, there's going to be something for you here today. And so, everyone's goal in this room, whether you're onboarding 1 or 70, is to have wildly productive and in-culture team members, right? To help us, build and improve our own systems, we've assembled an amazing group of rock star panelists for you today. Some incredible side partners who have gone through the onboarding experience and are going to share with you the impact it can have when it goes well and when it goes poorly. So thank you guys for joining us. For the format, we'll just do some quick introductions, spend some time with some questions to our folks, and focus on kind of high-level themes related to onboarding. And then we're going to open up the floor and give you guys a chance to ask these guys some questions and really dig in. Does that sound good? All right, then let's get started. Joe is going to introduce our incredible panelists today.
Absolutely. So we have Deanna Whip from Strokey Properties, Bayside Properties in the real South Bay down here. We also have Lauren Mosley from Rex. She is a managing director of sales.
Woo!
And Austin Glass, co-founder of Mint Real Estate.
Woohoo!
Each of these companies are at different stages of their customer journey here at Side. For instance, Mint, you've been here how long? You've been here a couple of years.
2 years.
Since June 2020. How many agents do you have now? 14?
We have 14 full-time.
14 full-time agents. Yeah. Deanna, you've been here a year longer, right? Since 2019?
2019, yeah.
And we have how many agents now?
30 foot agents, yeah.
34 agents, all right. Real estate experts. You've been here a year, one more year before
We've been here about 3.5 years, and we have 80 full-time agents.
80 full-time agents, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So talk to me about when you realized you needed to develop some sort of onboarding plan for these agents. Lauren, why don't we start with you?
Well, I am incredibly blessed and grateful that I get to work with Brett Jennings. And so I got to take his onboarding path and process and make just a few little tweaks and changes to it. So I did have a groundwork that was already laid out. And then we've just improved upon it over time. And I'd like to say that each session gets better every time we go through it. And but having that foundation was key.
Yeah, onboarding is certainly iterative. Deanna, when did you realize you needed to develop some sort of onboarding program for your agents that are coming on board?
Immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
Immediately, right when they walk in the door. We had to get our foundation laid before we could even honestly let them in the door. So that piece of work for us had to be done right away.
Yeah.
And then we could actually honestly bring them on and guide them through the process successfully. And that I have a really great team that helps me with that. And so that piece actually fell into place very quickly. And with the help of Side as well, I think we pulled that process together very quickly.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Austin, I'll close it with you. When did you realize you needed an onboarding plan?
I realized we needed an onboarding plan after we onboarded without a plan.
Totally.
I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow said this morning. She wished she could go back in time and start that plan right from the beginning. So what did you learn from not doing that?
I mean, we learned a lot. We didn't have, I'd say we had a rough outline of what we wanted the onboarding process to look like, what we wanted our agents to learn, but we kind of looked to where we wanted them to be maybe a year after onboarding, because it really is an ongoing process with training. And we put too much on their plate too fast, and it became overwhelming.
Yeah, makes sense.
So 3 very different businesses in different stages, all recognizing that onboarding and planning for onboarding is a must early on.
Right from the beginning.
Yep. So to get those wildly productive and in-culture team members, really the key is, as with any new organization, is to have a successful launch, right? You must launch these guys right off the bat with success. So having been involved in the onboarding process of both agents and operations team members, I am a huge believer in that first impression is everything. And Sarah Welzer of BDR, she says, this is a great quote, I think, onboarding is an art. Each new employee brings with them a potential for either achieving success or great things, and to lose that energy that they get of a new hire through poor onboarding is like opportunity lost. So right from the start, you want to make sure that it's a successful journey for them. So I know all 3 of you guys have had experiences where it's gone really well and where it didn't quite work, right? So thinking back on that, could you share a bit with us of what are those learnings, and if you could, help some of us prevent making those mistakes later, that would be great too. So who wants to start? How about Austin? We'll go in reverse this time.
I mean, I did a lot of, I think out of the 3 of us, because you guys had a groundwork, we're smart enough to put the groundwork down first. We always say, we tend to, what is it, ready, fire, aim? Ready, fire, aim. I think our biggest thing, it truly is just the overwhelm. Getting agents to understand that they need to commit to their business and show that they're going to work hard and care about the process of building the foundation of their business. And when we didn't even have a foundation for their onboarding, it didn't really create the right environment for them to truly commit to it. So what we learned was not to give everything at once, and now we have it to where we coach with Workman. Workman has a top 50, which is pretty much 50 people in your network that you're communicating with on a monthly basis. We have them do that first.
Right.
They do not get an email. They do not go through, they don't pass go. They have to complete that and then do 1 week of business planning through Workman in order just to get access to their email. And that was probably our biggest adjustment.
Great. Deanna?
I love this panel because I've learned things even about the process since we've done this together as a group. But 2 things I think that I've learned. The biggest mistake I've made is myself not being focused and sitting down and being my head in the game when it's time to bring them on. So if I haven't actually cleared my calendar and said today's the day to do it, and I'm not fully engaged with them, or if I haven't properly handed them over to the person who's supposed to do day 1, focus with them, that's on me. And that does take leadership to do that, and I have to slow down to do that. It's an investment, you gotta do it. The second piece of it is slowing down to roadmap it properly. I think a lot of people forget what it's like to be in the shoes of the agent sitting there day 1 and really slowing down and saying, what do you do on day 1 and what is it? So that, like, to your point, is not layering too much too fast on them. And I like what you say is, in your room, you say, I'm not gonna give them their email right away until they do this piece, but in my world, it's I don't wanna start them on their email or anything until it's even hooked up until the copier, until that's hooked up to the, because if they can't get that to work until this works, and they can't, I can't even get them going on Moxie until that's working, and if I haven't actually roadmapped that out, I'm just gonna put hurdles in their way and they're gonna be frustrated.
Yep.
So if I haven't sat down and actually pieced out how does that actually work, and if I gave that to you in the handout.
Yep.
And it's really tedious what mine looks like.
That's one of the resources?
Yeah, that's one of the resources, yeah. And that was how my roadmap and my brain worked when I laid that out. But it's just sitting down and actually doing that piecework.
Absolutely. Yep. The pre-planning and really making sure, like you said, that you're engaged in the process too.
Absolutely.
Yep. Lauren?
I think one of the things we've learned as we've grown is to really be selective. Don't hire out of pain, hire for gain. Also, some of the things we learned, we used to make everyone go through the entire, we use Boomtown as our CRM. We used to make them go through the entire Boomtown learning module system. And that's like 5 hours, and there's quizzes. And as we started top grading and bringing on higher level proven producers, it's like I took a page out of the herd group. I'm like, you don't need to know the back end and the nitty gritty of how Boomtown works. You need to know the categories, how to set a drip, how to set an e-alert, and our favorite ones.
Basics.
You need to know what you need to know, not the whole kit and caboodle. So keeping in mind, people learn differently, and challenging myself to find different ways to say the same message over and over and over and over again. Right. And keeping in mind that they're really only going to retain about 30% of all that has been something that I challenge with myself every time we do an onboard.
Fantastic. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for sharing. I mean, like we said, we all have learned from each other, just even in preparation for this panel. So looking forward to sharing that all with you guys too. You'll see at the end we have ways you can access a lot of what they have put together and what's their onboarding processes right now. And it's great to kind of pick and choose and pull things from it.
Side.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So if you don't set yourself up for success from the start, you're really setting yourself up for failure. We all kind of know this already. So it really is going to be very important to take a step back and say, this is what I'm going to be focused on now, developing my onboarding process to make sure that the agents that we bring on to our teams are going to be able to do the things that we need them to do. We want to develop your onboarding process just so your agents are in the most stable footing possible to grow their own business than by allowing you to grow your business. Now we're going to talk about the steps that it's going to take to get there. So I want Beth to take over right now.
Sure. So, I mean, you guys alluded to a lot of this already in what didn't work, what you learned early on, and that we think that, you just bring somebody on and you dive in and you just start training them. Well, there's actually a lot that we need to do for ourselves first, kind of get our own house in order, get our own hub in order, which is like really understanding things about ourselves, our organization, and our team in preparation for bringing someone else on. So, even before I think all of you did this too, before we tackle what are the tasks that go with once they walk in the door, we kind of step back, and I think all of you have done this, and you talked about this in here, and really saying, getting to know yourself and what is your brand vision, what is your mission, what are your core values. Being partners at Side, we're very lucky. We spent a lot of time figuring out what is our brand, what do we stand for. So being able to articulate that and share that with people that you're going to be onboarding is incredibly important. So having it written down and well thought through and kind of aligned in your organization. The second piece is really having a defined agent value proposition. What are they going to get by joining your team, and what are you going to get in return? What are those expectations, and what is it about your organization that's going to bring value to them? This is another thing, and it could be dollars and cents, or it can be coaching. It could be things that are priceless, that don't have a monetary side to it. But it's really important that, again, you're able to articulate that. The third piece is having clear standards and expectations of the organization and agent. And both Austin, you, and Deanna talked about this, and I know we go through this every day in Real Estate Experts, making sure that we're clear on what we stand for. Because as you grow, the bigger you get, the harder it is to ensure this if you're not aligning to those right up front. The fourth piece is, this is, again, Deanna, I know you've done this really, really well, which is setting detailed and documented operating procedures. So being able to write it down. You can't teach it if you can't write it down yourself. So taking the time to kind of document how you go about doing what you do. And then the last piece is really a scalable process or a system for onboarding, for the task management side of it, for the tracking, and then ultimately for accountability and evaluation. So it doesn't have to be sophisticated. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, but just something where you're actually documenting what are these steps and procedures and how are you going to hold your agents and your team members accountable as you go forward. So question to you guys, what did you guys do to get your hub in order? You kind of alluded to some elements there, but is there anything else that you would want to add about the preparation that you put in place before you even tackled the actual onboarding program itself? Who wants to go first?
I can take this one.
Okay.
I think some of it is about setting expectations with your new hires. I start with this even in the discovery call, where we're not the right fit for everyone. If your goal is to do 2 more units a year, we're not the spot for you. If your goal is to double your business and consistently double it, then it's worth having more conversation. People who come on board, we are very goals oriented. You can't grow what you're not managing. You can't manage what you're not measuring. You can't measure what you're not tracking. So when someone's not hitting their goals and we look at what their business plan is, and they're like, oh, I've been so busy. I've been so many appointments and I've just been so busy. It's like, well, that's great, but looks here, you've only added 2 people to the database in the last month. Who are these appointments? I'm not saying you're lying. Software doesn't lie. So just having those clear expectations that you are here to grow. And part of our core values, there's 2 of them that stand out. One is accountability and one is growth minded. And those are the reasons that agents are either leave, self-select out, or asked to leave is because they don't align with 2 of our 6 core values. And that means that you want to do better, you want to train like an athlete, perform like an athlete, and you want to be accountable. Those are your goals, not my goals. I'm not here to make you work. I'm here to help you realize your best potential.
Great. Yeah, Austin, did you want to add anything on that too? I know you guys spent some time, especially when you had it kind of, you went 2 steps forward, maybe 3 steps back, and then you took a leap forward again. And were there things that you did differently that second time around about getting kind of identifying all these things?
So I think the one time where we learned a lot, all the pain points, when we became Zillow Flex partners and kind of committed to, all right, we're in a cohort of a bunch of people that play at a little higher level than we generally do. We want to make sure that we keep up with the pack. Let's go out and start interviewing. We ended up interviewing 66 people in at least like the initial kind of feel it out call with 66 people in the first month. We brought 10 people on in, I want to say we brought everyone on in about a 10-day period and we put them all through the same onboarding process, what we thought was a process. And that was, thanks, Brett. So we ended up kind of throwing them over the fence a little bit and trusting that Side was going to take care of them. But it's not that Side didn't take care of them. They really just, they didn't have the process that Mint wanted to follow.
Right.
So we didn't want them to go through all of the trainings, all of the processes that necessarily Side gives us, because just as real estate experts uses Boomtown, we use Boomtown. And at that time, Side was really training on copper. So they ended up going down this path. So we finally sat down as a team. All 10 people, I brought them into the conference room and was like, I want you guys to tear this process to pieces. Tell me everything. I don't want to hear anything that was good. Tell me everything that sucked about this process. And then at the end went over, okay, what would you guys like it to be? How long would you like it to be? And sat down and built out a Monday.com kind of task list. And then our ops manager is addicted to creating automations, so she helped us do that. And since then, we took a majority of the process from Side, and it's smooth now. As long as, and now we're reintegrating Side to that process because the new onboarding, I don't know, what do you guys, I don't know if you call it the onboarding process or the new module you guys have built and continue is awesome. So that is getting reintegrated, and we have 1 person onboarding through it now.
Yeah, Austin, I'm curious. It sounds like you took your core team, brought them in, and asked them what they're looking for onboarding to help with your future agents. How long did that process take? Was it like an hour-long deep dive, or?
It was about an hour long, and I'd say you could get it done fairly quick. So we had 10 of us sitting in there, or 10 of the agents kind of giving me the pieces of the puzzle. And I don't remember if Brian was sitting with me or not while we were doing this, but somebody, I think it was our ops manager at that time, we were confused by a lot of the things that they were telling us of like, well, we have 9 passwords. There's no way you have 9 passwords. No tech company that would ever give you 9 passwords. Side gave them 9 passwords. And some of them were like 47 characters long. So
Don't change it for 2 weeks.
Very secure.
yeah, don't change it. So it was that type of stuff where after everyone gave their feedback, we sat with those people and actually opened their computers and got to understand what was happening.
Yeah.
By doing that, you and I sat down pretty often. I think it was about a month straight, where every week we would have our call and kind of go over, hey, how do we fix this part of it, and how do we reintegrate it?
Yeah.
And that ultimately it took about a month.
Yeah, so a month process to develop your onboarding process. Now, how much more efficient do you think that is now that you have that laid out?
It's so much simpler.
Yeah.
So much simpler. So it's a lot more efficient, but even if we just left it as a clunky, like if it was just on an Excel sheet, it would still be easier than what we were doing before because we're not dumping everything on top of them.
Yeah.
They get it. It's no longer just everything's in onboarding. It's onboarding, and then the training is continuous.
It sounds like, too, one of your lessons learned was we just don't hand it off to side and hope it works well, that you had to infuse what was important from your organization as well. And I know we've done that as well as real estate experts. We've also torn apart our system and put it back together in partnership with Side, which has been amazing. And Deanna, I think you guys, when we went through the panel for all of us, we said it's kind of like the 3 bears, you know. It wasn't working for you at first. You had it kind of nailed how to work with Side, and then we were ripping it apart, putting it back together. So Deanna, maybe you could share.
I'm never out of lunch.
Yes.
I'm never out of lunch. Always in lunch because of the way our company is built.
Yes.
So I'm constantly in lunch. And in that process, I'm always deconstructing that. And immediately, I mean, it's painful for me. And I do not like pain points. And anybody who works with me knows that. So I immediately have got to go through that and iron that out. And because I don't want my agents going through that pain. My agents don't need to live in that zone. That is not for them.
Yep.
And I want everything simplified. I will take that on, I will take the pain on, and I will iron that for them so that when they walk into this process, it is step by step, as simple as it can be to digest for them. So when they're coming in, and a lot of these agents are walking in, and some of them have never had a tech platform. You know, they're fumbling with WinForms and other, barely like maybe looking at a CRM here and there, and I'm asking them to layer in an app, and I'm asking them to layer in Moxie, and multiple systems here, and I need to make this as painless as possible. And oh, by the way, here's your new email signature, and here's your 27 character long password that I need you to remember and not touch, and don't
change it.
Don't change it. And so there is what I've discovered and has worked best for us is what I think is a divided kind of program where we run what's kind of like an internal audit of what is the Side onboarding kind of system, where in terms of like flipping all the switches. So let's audit that together with the business manager. So my business manager and I have developed a bit of an auditing system together with this new person. So we'll go through and make sure, just do our green lights match, all the way through. And then we have our internal at Bayside, more of a training system. So we've developed SOPs for all of those. And we've written them out, and so it's not so that if I'm not in the room, the next person, my sales manager can pick that SOP up and train that. The person next to them can pick that up and train it. So it's replicatable, and I don't want to say dumbed it down, but we have dumbed it down to make it as simple as possible so that it can be digested by as many different people in the way they learn as possible. Yeah.
Very quickly, it sounds like all three of you have had conversations with Side in order to make this onboarding experience even better for your agents. So that's going to be a big takeaway for all of
We're
you.
both learning alongside each other.
Exactly.
It's not like you guys are still learning just as we are.
Absolutely, yes. It's always ongoing. But that partnership, like you said, I think that having that audit is really key.
The willingness to actually change has been one of the biggest things that I look at. Because if you guys messed it
Absolutely.
up and left it the same, that'd be a problem.
Because it's not one size fits all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not. So we've talked a lot about why you'd want to do an onboarding plan, why you need to take a step back and build on this. Now let's talk about the actual plan itself. We're going to break it down into three different general phases for you. These phases really won't change as you're scaling your business. You could be onboarding 5 new buyer agents. You could be onboarding 50 agents. The process is going to be very similar, just different problems. Right? So Beth, can you talk to us about what these phases are going to be?
Absolutely, yeah. And as Joe said, there's the 3, but one of these is kind of really pre-onboarding, and Lauren already alluded to this early on, and this is actually very, very critical before you start, right? And that is what is really the pre-onboarding phase before you even bring them on or bring them, have them sign a contract. It's doing that expectation setting and that commitment conversation early on so that you're really aligned on, when you're bringing them on board, what is, again, what we said, what is expected from them, what is expected from us, and Lauren's quote's one of my favorite, which is, the way people show up for onboarding is how they will show up as an agent. So the more we can get them ready for success before we even start the actual onboarding phase, the better. And so I don't know if you want to expound a little bit more on what we do inside Real Estate Experts, and then these guys probably have some things that they do as well to align not only to those expectations, but also making sure we're aligned on our values, our vision, and what's going to happen from an operating procedure standpoint.
Absolutely. What I've meant by, the way people show up is the way they're going to succeed. When I set out the parameters, hey, for onboarding, we're going to meet for 1 hour together a day on Zoom. And in that hour, phones down, cameras on. So when I see people who are, can I just watch the video later? And they don't have their camera on, and they're like, I had to take a phone call. It's like, this is how they show up as an agent too. And they don't come out of onboarding knowing the scripts, passing the test to get receiving Zillow calls, and so forth. And as far as that commitment and how to get alignment, don't be afraid to put it in writing. I think our ICA with Side is something like 26 pages. We have outlined standards of behavior, standards of when, non-disparagement, if you depart your team or your company, our lead management policy. Show of hands here, who is buying leads for their agents to work? Anyone? Exactly. And if you're blessed to have an inside sales department, having a policy around if an agent is not nurturing and taking care of those leads, being able to take them back. So when we get an agent freaking out, hey, you've messed with my leads in my pipeline. It's like, please defer to lead management policy, section 2.3 of your contract, which states you will follow up with these leads in this succession, or the company reserves the right to redistribute. So when in doubt, have it in writing. The commitment conversations we're talking about, some of the things that sets us apart is we do invest in leads. We have a very robust inside sales department, a very robust marketing department, and we're high service. Our expectations are you are going to use our listing management services. You are going to do the above and beyond marketing. And having that, you're signing this agreement. This is why you came here. You came here to run fast, and you're going to use all these services, and we're not going to get stuck tripping over pennies on our way to dollars. So that would be kind of a little bit about our part.
4 billion of them.
Or 1.2, come on,
So that's the commitment, the early pre-onboarding phase. Phase 2 is really the actual onboarding itself. So once we've got that alignment and commitment from our team members, this is where the real onboarding can take place. And again, we know each of you have a very clearly defined onboarding plan. It's changed over time, but maybe you could share just a bit. I want to make sure we don't go too long over and we have time for questions. So maybe if you guys could just kind of give maybe a brief overview each of what is all involved in your actual onboarding once you get past that pre-commitment phase. Anyone want to?
I'll take on ours is simple, like I was saying before. It's the pre-commitment phase we need to do, and I can guarantee none of the agents read section 2 point whatever you said it was.
They didn't.
Yeah, up until you have the problem, that's when they read the contract, which is bizarre. So that's an evolving thing for us. But our biggest thing with our, let's call it the last 2 agents that we've launched with the way that we run it now, it's that pre-commitment, making sure they're at least going to commit to their business with that top 50, the business plan. And Brian and I sit down and I commend you for spending an hour every single day while they're coming on board. I can imagine a lot of those calls, and we just changed this part of it where a lot of those calls, you're probably telling them to do something that they were meant to do yesterday, and they haven't done it, and then each day you're reminding them. So for us, we have kind of the dependencies, which I think is what you're talking about, where Monday.com being where we have everything live. We have it to where they get their email address after that initial commitment doing their business planning. Once they get that, then now they have to jump into Side's Continue class. I think it's a live webinar. I want to say it's 2 hours long, and it actually takes them like handhold through the process of logging into the Side app, understanding how you can actually put contracts together. Because the agents that we have recently hired, one of them opened escrow on a property 24 hours after joining. So getting them onboarded quickly in that part of it, but not teaching them the back end system of like Boomtown you were talking about. We only teach them that first part. This is the bare minimum of what you need. Then they go into the actual continued training process after that we assign, and they have to start coming to team meetings and start doing the script work and calls like Side is doing now on Mondays.
Are you?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, and maybe you guys could also comment. I know earlier you had shared with us, each of you, how you keep them engaged during the process and how you communicate with them as well. So feel free to weave those in since we are a little tight on time, but definitely want you guys to share that because we know it's a long process in some cases and you want to keep them engaged throughout it.
Yeah, I'll just jump ahead on ours. Ours is, I mean, it's everything probably all of you are doing it because I saw by show of hands that most of you are doing or have done quite a few onboarding journeys, I think, with a lot of your own agents. So it's not new to you, but I think what is successful for us is the fact that we just continue that journey. It is a constant with us, and what happens is we just move onward with workshops, constantly educating them. And the one thing I think I brought forward was my history of sitting in these offices of these big box rooms in these sales meetings and listening to what used to be presented to these agents as what was valuable. And it was never anything deep, and it was always very surface level. And what we try to do now is always bring something that is taking these agents next level. So we put a lot into how do we take the Moxie presentation and make it something that they can take their Zillow client and they can embed video into that, and they can turn a Moxie presentation outside of just a listing presentation, and they can make it a really powerful 3 or 4 touch follow-up system for a Zillow client, and we'll make a workshop out of that. And so we host, I want to say 4 different sessions a week on different ongoing educational series that you guys would probably think just feels like never-ending onboarding. But to me, I think is very, very valuable for the agents. And it just makes them better and better as we continue to go. And it feeds into their business plan. Our focus at Bayside is constantly to be working on their business plans so that they're working towards their goals and their numbers. And that is what we work on the daily. You have puppet shows.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. I do.
Lauren, you want to share?
Yes. I've been asked to do the puppet show. Okay, so when I go into onboarding, we take it back to school, like possibly kindergarten. And so we start with popcorn reading, our core values. And if you think that agents are not going to pay attention, they're going to pay attention, because Brett invented this amazing word and I love it. I say, well, you can volunteer or I can volunteer. I can volunteer you to read the next core value out loud. We then, when I'm teaching things, can I see a show of hands? Who here is HomeLight Elite? Anybody HomeLight? There we go. Now, question for the audience. Do you teach your agents to use the word HomeLight when they're talking to their buyers or sellers? You do. So I have a horror story that I tell them. I was like, we're never use the word HomeLight, and here's why. You get excited and you talk to your buyer about HomeLight and you don't have them fully committed to working with you. What do? They're gonna Google HomeLight, and then they're gonna put their name in, and then it's gonna go out to the system. They're gonna be contacted by 8 different agents. And I have stories of our agents losing listings, including one guy who his landlord, in the unit he was living in, was selling, and he got excited and didn't listen to what I taught him during onboarding, and he said HomeLight, and the guy Googled, and then it ended up his team member on the same team went to the consultation, won the listing, sold the unit. So these stories help them remember. And what we do too is we're like, hey, we've got to learn the same language. We've got to speak the same language for the CRM. So, a lead comes into new, and I use hand movements. New means never been seen. I've never seen this lead. Brett is going to stress out if you leave leads in new. He's going to freak out, and I'm going to call on people, and I'm going to say, Angela, you've got 3 leads in new. Have you called these people? And so now they know. I was like, a lead comes in. What does it mean? They're like, new, never been seen. What do we do? Disposition. Same thing with hot. You've got an appointment. You're out showing houses. You're preparing. How often are you going to send properties? How often? And they're like, instant. And we go through the stages, and even getting to the people who are more of a nurture status and asking the question, okay, if someone tells you, yes, I'm committed to working with you, I want to list my house, but not until next year, I ask the question, are you going to send them properties every day? And they're like, no. I was like, if you do, that'll get you an unsubscribe. How often are we going to send them properties? And so we go through and start each session with a little quiz on the Boomtown categories, with a little quiz on who's who in our departments. I love this one. One of our finance associates, his name is Connor, and I teach them, you see an email from Connor, what does that mean? And they're like, commissions, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna open it right away. Like, it's just keeping it fun and engaged and doing it that way. And it's just trying to keep it less me talking at them, but more collaborative. We do scripts, and so the role play is chunking it down. It took me a lot of trial and error to teach the buyer consultation, and then chunking it down to sections. Like, hey, just today, we're only gonna practice these first 3 questions. Now go. And having them practice with each other. So it's taking it back to basics. You just need to know what they need to know, just enough to get out to survive. And it is your job as somebody who's onboarding them to be able to show them where they can go to find the answers when they forget or when they don't know.
That's the key, is just leaving them the roadmap. So we use what I call an intranet. I use a system called Quip. And I joke that the answer has always got to be Quip before Whip. Like, you go to Quip before you come to Whip, because the answer's in there, and if it's not in there, then you can ask me. And that's how I keep my sanity.
My last name doesn't rhyme that well.
I'm sorry. Glass?
Something has
Glass.
Glass.
There's something that rhymes with that.
Glass before glass. There you go.
Yeah, but we every SOP we build, everything we do, everything, our ARM questions, our ARM forms, everything to do with Revive, everything to do with Workman, everything to do, every script, everything to do with Zillow, every training module, everything is in that Quip. They're all in folders. They're all, it's on an app on your phone. So when they're out in the field, resource that they ever need, they can go to it and they can get to answers that they need. And especially as part of the post onboarding, because they can't remember everything. They can't retain it all.
Nope.
And they're going to need to go back to it. And so you've got to leave that somewhere for them so they can get to it. And the best part is when you build that collaborative culture and they lean on each other. There's been a lot of talk about culture today, I think even yesterday for the partners that were here. It's so important that your team knows how to lean into each other and rely on each other, so that if you cannot get to them right away, that they are getting to each other and they know how to tell each other where to go and what to do. and that they do support each other with that, and that they are helping each other and they know what to do, because mine does that, and it makes me so proud when they do. And we've got, you know, a lot of you use Slack. We've got channels for that, and to watch them do that is just, it's wonderful. And I just love being able to lead a team that knows how to help each other like that.
Proud
Yeah, I
mom.
think it's important to note that this is the third phase, the post-onboarding component of your onboarding plan. Once they're live, they're onboarded, you're not done with them. It's going to be important to continuously ask them questions, make sure they are supported, make sure that they have resources to do their job properly.
Absolutely, yep. I think, and that involves, like you said, there's people, processes, and systems, and all of that too, in any phase that we're in here. And I mean, really that is, as we, whoops, did I go back? You know, as you think about wherever you are in your growth plan and wherever you are in your onboarding program and development of that there's going to be these three things that you're going to be looking at, and you're going to be looking at them constantly, right? You all have mentioned today that your onboarding process is ongoing. It's always evolving. It doesn't matter if you're doing 1 agent, 70 agents, you're always going to be having to think about who are the people that are going to be involved. Is it just your organization? Is it your organization plus side? Is it your organization plus side plus the people on your team helping each other? The process itself, who's involved in it? What are the steps? Outlining it. And then importantly, having some sort of system. Everyone here on the stage uses a variety of different systems. We'll talk about that a little bit. We can answer any questions on that, and we can share it as well. So I'm going to just to make sure we have time to have anybody ask any questions they may have, I'm going to turn it over to you, Joe,
for sure.
Just to kind of wrap up.
Yeah, in summary, you know, we talk generally about productive team members, you know, need these resources in order to do their job properly. We have all of these resources. Now it's up to us to make sure that we translate that over to your associate partners, okay? So you need to prep your organization on how to onboard agents, right? You need to take time in order to do that. Having a clear alignment and commitment, it's really, so can you take this one?
Yeah, well, as you guys said, having that understanding up front about what the agent can expect from us and what we can expect from them, and being really clear before you go into that onboarding so there's no frustration or confusion.
My favorite thing to tell them right off the bat, my first thing I tell them is, you are going to hate this.
So
You're going to hate
Hate
this.
it, yeah.
And by the time I'm done with you, you're going to love it. I'm like, just be patient with me and work with me, because at the end of this, you're going to love it. But give me 2 or 3 days to hate this, because it's going to be painful. And they do. And by the end of it, I wish my phone was blowing up when I had notes on it. I wanted to read a quote to you, because one of my agents actually said to me, and I'm going to paraphrase it now because I had a quote, literally texted me, and the paraphrase was to the effect of, if you're not using the side app to level up your game right now, you're not getting it. And this was somebody who during onboarding was like, I hate this thing. And so that was the turnaround. So it's really, the trick is to put a system together. If you're going to design this, slow down and do not overwhelm them. You cannot overwhelm them, and you've got to take it through very systematically. And when you're putting systems together, the one thing I do, constantly, talk with my hands all the time, is to audit my own systems and try to constantly funnel them, especially when side layers and more stuff.
Right.
Constantly funnel them so that I'm trying to keep the systems as streamlined as possible, so they're not swallowing more and more pieces of the platform. Because if we give them too many, it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
That's the only advice I
feel
can
like
give
across
you.
the board
And
that's
setting
all of
those
us say the same
expectations,
thing.
right? Setting the expectation that it is going to be a process.
Right.
Absolutely. It's like keeping it what's in it for me. The way I teach our buyer's consultation is, you know, I tell them right off the bat, if you've got a bio page, get that out of there. Nobody cares.
Right.
It has to be, everything is what's in it for me. From the buyer, what's in it for me? If you're going to humble brag that you're a certified negotiation expert, what's in it for me? And same thing with my new recruits, my onboards, it's, I'm not teaching you this for me, it's what's in it for them. So every new thing they're learning, what the benefit is for them. And it's great when you have a system that you've worked the kinks out of. And I had a phenomenal group of very tenured agents go through onboarding, and they did the shouting out the answers and the reading popcorn and all this stuff. And these women are amazing powerhouses on their own, with some of them with 20 years, 15 years, 12 years experience. And for them to say, it got me out of my comfort zone, but it's things I needed to do, and thank you for making it comfortable. And just owning that this is gonna be painful, or this is gonna be uncomfortable, but you're gonna thank me later. And I think that that's a big part of it.
100%.
We talked a lot about a lot of different things here. I want to make sure that we have access to all the resources that we've talked about. There are a number of resources that all 3 of these brands are using. We want to make sure you have them. So take your phones out, scan this code. Please, you'll be able to see absolutely all of you can request the slides from today. You can see the processes that all 3 of our panelists have. You can see the process that Sai has put together for you. And then have a conversation with the success team, with your business manager, in order to make sure that this becomes a reality for all of your onboarding agents.
Great. Joe, may I do a plug?
Absolutely.
That's okay. So first of all, I'm super lucky to have Beth as one of my partners in our business. So shout out to Beth for those of you who are lucky enough to work with her. And if you like what you heard here, myself and Beth and Brett and our other sales leaders will be going on tour doing Roadmap to a Billion. So be on the lookout for an invite to Roadmap to a Billion, where you can learn about how real estate experts went from 200 million to 1.28 billion over the course of 3 years.
Do you want to just give them Brett's cell phone number? They can text
Yeah,
it.
sure thing.
We'll put that up.
Sure thing.
So we're
Scan
being-
the QR
we're
code.
being-
It's got
yeah.
Brett's number and his address.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lauren, but we're being asked to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So we will, however, be available for Q&A right outside the door in the lobby. So if people do have questions for our fabulous panelists here, feel free to find them right out here. And we'll be there for like 15 minutes or so for questions. And we appreciate you guys staying till the bitter end. Thank you so much, and have a fabulous night. Get your Avenger mask ready. We'll see you out there for cocktails. Thanks.